Everyone has some sort of a closet that's become too small. A closet is no place to live, and I want to support as many people as I can in stepping out of that prison into the fullness of life that's waiting for them on the other side of that closet door. I'm Nancy Shadlock from Centered Life Coaching. Join me in listening to these Coming Out Chronicles. Get curious about your story, and then see what good things are waiting for you on the other side of your closet door. Elaine, it's so great to have you on this podcast.
It's so good to be here. So excited.
Yeah. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself in an introduction?
Sure. So my name's Elaine Alec, and I am originally from Penticton, British Columbia. But I'm currently living in Kamloops, BC with my husband and our kids. We've been here for about 3 years, and I grew up on the Penticton Indian Band Reserve for most of my life, and only went away for bits and pieces here and there throughout my life. So Penticton's always been my home, and only in the last year have I decided to say Kamloops is home.
Wow. And what is your work in the world?
Oh, so I started as an independent consultant about 10 years ago, and that grew really quickly. And so I found two partners to team up with, and we created a planning company called Alderhill Planning Incorporated. And it's an Indigenous planning company, and we work with Indigenous communities across Canada. And we also work with provincial and federal governments. So I've been doing that for the last 5 years with Chief Chris Derrickson and Jesse Hemphill. And just this January, we've hired 3 full-time staff as well, and we also have 4 associates. So we're growing quite a bit, and we've managed to go through COVID without laying anybody off or doing any salary cuts, and without having any COVID relief funds for small businesses. So we've been really blessed that we've been able to, you know, be really flexible with how we're doing things, and have moved. We were able to really move quickly online with a lot of the work that we were doing.
That's awesome. What kind of planning do you do?
So most of it is community planning. We specialize in community planning, governance planning, health planning. We do healing plans for communities, strategic plans, business and economic development plans, land use plans. We do a wide range of planning because our expertise is in community engagement. And so we're really thorough in how we involve and include different perspectives in the work that we do. But I specialize in healing and conflict resolution and mediation with really hard to discuss topics. So a lot of times I get brought in when there's been some conflict and people are unable to come together to work together and plan together. So I come in to help get people into that space where they can actually sit together and start planning.
That's so needed. Thank you for your work in the world.
Thank you.
So I'm so curious to hear, what is your coming out story that you'd like to share with us today?
I had, when I was going through the questions and I saw that question, I was thinking there are so many. I feel like growing up the way that I have, experiencing a lot of different trauma, and learning a lot of protective behaviors, and built all these walls around myself. I feel like as I've gone through life, every 5 years, every 4 to 5 years, there's been this being able to tear down one of those layers and come out as a new person and be okay with who that person is. But I think, when I was thinking about one of the best things I've ever done for myself, and one of the best things that I ever claimed, I guess, was to admit that I was an alcoholic. And that was really hard for me. I spent a majority of my life drinking. I started drinking at a really young age and became a raging alcoholic when I was 12, and
Wow.
spent my entire teen years and my 20s really lost in that addiction. And I was such a different person there because I was so hurting, and I was really abusive, and I was physically and emotionally and mentally abusive to all of the people around me. And I just was such an angry, different person. And when I finally decided to get healthy and start working on myself and get dry, meaning I was just going to cut the alcohol out, but not deal with the feelings and stuff,
Mm.
I started to struggle as my feelings started to surface because I wasn't using alcohol to numb them out anymore. And there was one day after I had come back from Choices seminars that a lot of stuff had come up there where they were asking questions about your childhood and your experiences and how you worked through things, and a lot of things that I hadn't thought about in a very long time, and a lot of things that were coming back that I was starting to remember. And I remember having a massive anxiety attack and talking to my husband at the time, and he just asked me straight out, "Do you feel like drinking?" And it had been over a year since I had had a drink. And when he said that, that's when I broke and realized that I had a problem with alcohol, that I was powerless over alcohol, and that I needed help. And went to my godparents, and they took me to an AA meeting with a bunch of bikers. And I had never been to a meeting like that before, and everybody was dropping F-bombs, and it was just a totally different feel from what I'd experienced going into meetings like that before. And when it was my turn, it's the first time I said, "Hi, my name's Elaine and I'm an alcoholic."
Mm.
And as soon as I said that, it was just tears. I couldn't stop crying.
Wow.
Um, so I think that was one of the biggest moments in my life that really started to, because I hid it for so long. Like
Mhm.
I was a closet drunk. I thought nobody knew. I thought nobody knew how bad it was, um, because I was acting on the outside that I was fine, that I was a role model, and I was doing, I thought I was really good at hiding the dysfunction, because I was working, in politics, and I was upheld as a role model in a lot of our communities, and the work that I did. I was, talking about being a healthy person, and, modeling a healthy marriage, and, all of these things that people saw from me. But really, behind closed doors, when I'd send my son off to his grandparents, I'd leave and drink. And, I had friends who'd open up their kitchens and their restaurants for me, and I would drink in the kitchen with like a small group of people. So nobody knew I was drinking. So it was, about 10 years that I really tried to hide how bad my drinking had got.
Mm. And so, what was the catalyst to really not just dry up, but also deal with the emotions underneath?
I think it was, I mean, I got to the point where I was just not happy anymore. Um, I was tired of feeling guilty all the time. I was tired of lying all the time. Um, I went to Choices seminars, and I was like sober for a year, and I remember they started talking about drinking and alcohol, and I remember listening to everybody talk about it, and I didn't want to admit to anybody that I had only been sober for a year, because there were people in there who knew me. And I kept thinking people thought I was sober for a much longer time. And so I was just sick and tired of lying, and I was sick and tired of trying to cover up. And I was just miserable, and I knew that I had to do something different. And so when I went to Choices, and started talking about my past and my feelings, and how that affected me and how I was doing things in my life, it stayed with me. And I knew that if I didn't deal with the feelings, that I was going to start drinking again and I would probably die, because it just consumed my life, and I would slip into such a big depression and self-harm.
Hmm.
And so I knew that was the point in my life where I knew it either had to be, I had to either work through my crap and deal with it, or start drinking again and lose everything.
Right. And so what did that look like, that healing journey?
It was painful. It was, I tell people all the time, like, healing sucks. It
Yeah.
sucks so bad. And it's like you feel like you're gonna go insane, and you feel like you're gonna, if you start crying or if you break, you're never gonna come back. It's like that. You can just feel the breaking and you can feel the emotion. And it's because you've held it back for so long that by the time it gets there, you have this fear that if I let go and if I feel and if I go through this, there's a chance I might not be able to put myself back together, that that's gonna be it for me. And I've pushed myself to that brink and just let go and howled and cried and gone into depression for a week, and just felt the feelings, and I would let myself be without trying to name what was happening, but just let my body and my emotions do what it needed to do. And after that, I could feel myself coming back together, and things would come to me that I knew I needed to talk about or address, or a memory would resurface that I could talk about and let go. And so it's been painful, but not stopping. A lot of times in my life, I've gone to that point and I could feel it coming and I'd veer back, because I wanted to be in control of my healing journey. I wanted to be in control of how I was feeling, and I could talk about my healing from my head and talk about the process, but feeling the feelings was a totally different thing. And so, there's a lot of people who are really good at talking about healing and asking those questions and taking you through that process, that you can say, oh, there's my trauma. That's how it affects me. This is why I behave this way. But unless you're going deep into those feelings and feeling those things and letting them go, you're not really, kind of breaking through that so you can actually let it go. And so it was a lot of that up and down. I finally got sober when I was 30, and the first 6 years were the hardest. They were the hardest for me. The first two were really hard, but by the time I hit 6, because it was just so much stuff that I had not dealt with my entire life that I just kept avoiding. And so when I decided to go through it, I made a commitment that I was going to be rigorously honest about everything so that I could just deal with it and move on, because I was so tired of being sick. I was so tired of being miserable. I was so tired of, not feeling deserving of a better life.
Hmm. And here you have created a better life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a journey. I still struggle with a lot of the emotions. I still want to think before I feel. Um, I actually know when I'm going to cry. I can feel the anxiety building up and I can feel my lips start to tingle. And I will say, I'm probably going to cry today or tomorrow because it takes a while for it to, when I hear bad news, or if there's if I experience a big loss, I don't cry right away. It goes to my head and I'm like, wow, this is really bad news. I'm gonna cry, but I just don't know when. And it usually takes me a good day or two before it just comes. And it starts as an anxiety attack. And then once I give myself permission to let go, I'm able to cry and grieve and feel. But it's strange. My body actually has to go through this process because because of the lifelong conditioning of not being able to cry and show emotion, that's the process I go through in order to have feelings.
Wow. It's incredible that you've come to know your body and yourself so well, and not shaming it, but receiving it, embracing it as it is.
Yeah, it makes my relationships better, because so many times I didn't want to explain myself. And I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was broken. I thought, all of these things, that I was damaged. And so I didn't really get close with people because I didn't want to have to explain myself, because I didn't want people to think I was crazy, because all of these things like, oh, there must be something wrong with me, if I can't do this, or if I'm not naturally like this. And, so I've questioned all parts of myself my entire life, and who I am and how I am and what I do. It's just my brain doesn't stop. It's constantly going. And and only the last few years I've been able to just be like, I'm just going to be and not care about what anybody else is going to say or how they feel about me. And I'm just going to be real to myself, even if somebody decides they're not going to like me. And that includes being real with my husband too, because I've spent my entire life wanting to please everybody and stuffing myself and stuffing how I feel just to make everybody else happy so that they love me more. So yeah, it's been freeing. It's been so freeing to be able to just be myself and be okay with that. And the people that have come into my life and loved me exactly how I am, and I don't have to pretend to be anything I'm not.
I can really see so many parallels with that and like a queer coming out story of thinking for years and years, like, I think this might be true about myself, but I'm scared to say it out loud. I don't know what people will think about me if I do, and people will reject me. I don't like this thing about myself. And then to like start to embrace it and come out and realize like, oh yeah, there's a beauty in this. And if I embrace it, others will too. And we can connect with others in a deeper way because we're honest about who we are. It's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your next coming out journey.
I was just talking about this with my cousin today. So I wrote this book that I wasn't sure. I was going to be happy if the people that I thought were going to buy it were going to buy it, or that were going to support it. And I've wanted to be a writer my entire life. And in my book, I talk about my childhood trauma. I was sexually abused from the age of 4 to 10, and not just by one person in my community, but by many. And so that really affected why I behaved the way I behaved, and why, I started drinking at such a young age, and why I was trying to hide all this pain. But we were talking about this, how I have my contract for myself, my self-affirmation is, I am a deserving woman who loves herself. And it's not easy for me to feel deserving of good things, of feeling that I deserve a good life or accolades, or, I work really hard. And then even when I work hard and I receive back, I still don't feel deserving of it. I still, think I could do better. And so I'm always working really hard and striving. And, I told my cousin today, I said, I'm at this point right now where I'm so overwhelmed with emotion because I'm receiving so much love. I'm receiving so much love from people who have read my book, who have started to follow my social media, who are reaching out to me like every day, all day. I'm managing all these messages and emails, and from women from all over the world. I've connected with people from different parts of the world. I never expected that. I was thinking maybe, if I'm lucky, a couple of people will buy it in the United States, and it's probably just going to be small. And so the reaction to it has been really overwhelming, and I've had so much anxiety from it, and to the point where I felt sick to my stomach, where I'm like, oh, I'm having anxiety attack because I'm scared, because I'm fearful, because that's where anxiety comes from, because I'm sad. No, that's not the feeling. What is this feeling? And then thinking, oh my gosh, this is pride. It's pride for myself. It's happiness. It's like all of these good feelings that I've never felt about myself before. So, that's been huge for me, to be just like, okay, I should be okay with this. Like, I'm just going to soak in this, but then I feel guilty. I feel guilty for being proud of myself, because I've told all my life, you have to be humble. Don't be full of yourself. Don't talk about yourself. If you work hard, your work will speak for itself. And so this has been such an uncomfortable thing for me to do, is to like come talk about myself and talk about my book and talk about my achievements. And I think it gets a little bit easier, but I still feel the anxiety from it. And so today my cousin just said, she was like, I want you to just be. She said, because if your book failed, you would be way more comfortable with that. You would be okay with that more than you haven't really felt this before. And she's like, in so many, especially women, we have a hard time accepting, that we're not imposters for something, or that, just celebrating our own successes. And so I'm trying to, I'm doing my best to not, because I've been hiding myself in the work and the promoting and the marketing, like the work part and the goal setting and achieving those, because it keeps my mind off of like, this is actually happening, and all these opportunities are coming, and it seems too big for me. It seems like I don't feel deserving. It's like, this is so big, like these opportunities and these people that are reaching out to me, that are wanting to support me in my work. It's very overwhelming. Like, I'm not allowed to be this big. So I'm doing my best to step into that and just be okay with that, and not do things to make myself small or to shrink myself down, and to just step into where I'm at right now, and not to and just say thank you.
Not hide in any closet, but let yourself fully step out of it.
Yeah, and that's been so hard. Just every time I'm like, okay, I've got to do this today, and I'm going to respond to because it's so easy I've done it before, where things I've started to grow or started to, get acknowledged for certain things, and I'll disappear and just check out, and I won't answer things, and I won't be accountable. I won't follow through. I step into a lot of those self-defeating games, so I don't have to deal with that. And I hold myself back from the feeling good and the success and mostly the feeling good, because that feeling is, I just have such a hard time with feeling really good. I just have such a hard time with it.
What's coming up for me is, I will always remember when I first met you at a Choices seminar, which is like a personal growth seminar that we met at. You spoke and shared about kind of creator and kind of the stories of creation and how it interacts with our life today. And as like that's always stood with me because it was such a beautiful description and in your words and in your culture, and it gave me insight into that. And as I'm sitting here listening to you now, I'm thinking like, yes, this is so big, and yes, like, yay, you did this is incredible, and this is creator living through you. And as you look at it in that lens, what comes up for you as you see it like that?
One of my mentors is Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, and he has encouraged me to write and speak since I was a kid. And every time I would hold myself back, I'd hold myself back, and he'd come and talk to me, and he'd kind of elbow me and say, you need to say something. I know you have something to say. And every time I'd write something, he'd say, you need to copyright that, because this is going to be, you know, people are going to want what you write about. And he always told that to me. But every time I'd hold myself back, he'd look at me and he'd say, don't sit on the gifts that the creator gave you.
Mm.
And, you know, one of the things that is what has helped me actually, you know, when things get really big, I love this. I love how everything happens exactly how they're supposed to happen. And I love how I'm talking to you and you're asking me this, because that right there, when you said that, I was just like, oh, that is it. That's like, it's my purpose. And, you know, it happened exactly when it was supposed to happen. You know, I was supposed to write this book 10 years ago, but I didn't. And it's happening exactly when it's supposed to be happening, when and how, and you know, it's perfect timing. It's not in my hands. Like, I didn't plan any of this. I didn't plan to get inspired to write in December. I didn't plan for a pandemic to hit and, you know, to have everything roll like it did, and then everything coming to surface in the world that's coming to surface, and the conversations people are willing to have, and that my book addresses all of these things we're talking about in the world right now. And I always, like, my purpose is to gather and share the knowledge of our ancestors to promote healing for the mind, body, and spirit. And when I think of when I've done really well in life, it's when I've believed in the creator, when it's when I've had that faith that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and that just trusting in that. And so that, you know, my sister would usually ask me something like that. My mom was like that. She was very faith-based, and my sister does that to me, and she'll ask me a question that's faith-based, and I'm just like that. It's like this key inside of me that just goes, okay, it's all better now. And that's what that question did to me. It's, yeah, I just have to have that faith, and faith that I'm going to be okay, and that faith that, you know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing now. And and I always say, it's not, I'm just a storyteller. These aren't, you know, it's about my life, but it's also all the tools and everything that I share. It's from everybody I've ever met in my life that's inspired me, that I've kept as part of me, and how I teach and share. It's not me. I'm not the one that came up with all of this stuff. I'm just a storyteller that's sharing everything that's been shared with me over the last 42 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're a vessel. You're a conduit, and spirit is working through you and doing so much healing work in the world. It's so beautiful. If you could kind of encapsulate your book, first of all, tell us the name of your book, and then encapsulate the essence of it. What is it all about?
So my book is called Calling My Spirit Back. and it's about my life and the things that I've gone through, all of the hurts and the pains and the traumas. But it also talks about Indigenous knowledge and teachings and protocols and stories and ceremonies, and how I've utilized those to help me in my healing journey. And it also talks about all of the different things that I've been a part of in my life. My tama, my grandma, was a language speaker. She didn't speak English, and she told me stories, but she was also a devout Catholic. So I grew up going to church every Sunday and going to catechism every Wednesday. And my family always raised me to believe and respect all people's backgrounds, beliefs, ideas, because it all came from love. They were all valid, and not one was better than the other. And so my family was really big about that, and growing up, and you know, when I'd experience racism, my mom would always say, well, you know, just think about what they're going through, and think about the hurt they must be feeling to want to hurt you that bad. And you know, you should probably feel sorry for them. And so she told me to feel sorry for people who were racist, and that's just the message we got growing up. And so, you know, it talks about my experiences with racism, and growing up as an Indigenous girl in a predominantly white school. And then, you know, it ends with sharing tangible steps on how to cultivate safe spaces to promote diversity and inclusion in the work that you do in organizations and governance and planning, but also in cultivating safe space so you can do your own healing.
And so people that aren't Indigenous would benefit from this just as much as those who are.
I've had so much good feedback from people, mainstream Canadians from all over, who've read the book and say they can't put it down, and everybody needs to read this, and I'm sharing this with, you know, everybody in Canada needs to read this. And so it's been amazing, and people saying that they can't put it down, and it's a easy read. I don't, you know, I know there's a lot of resources out there that talk about, you know, a lot of the things that I talk about, but mine is really easy to read. I don't use a lot of complicated language, or, you know, I'm definitely not an academic. And so, so a lot of people have told me they've connected with my story. And even I didn't think that, you know, there would be older men would feel comfortable reading my book, especially because of some of the things that I talk about. But I've had 2 older men respond to me and tell me that they've read the book. They just picked it up, and once they read the first 2 chapters, that was it. They wanted to know how I got to here from there. And so I always tell people, read the first 2 chapters at least.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. And anytime it's storytelling, it's so much easier to enter into somebody's story than some academic writing.
Mm.
It gets under our skin, into our hearts more. Where can people get this book?
It's available. You can find it through my website. So if you go to www.elainealec.com, there's a few different links that you can order it from. I don't have any more books. I bought a whole bunch to sell, but mine sold out right away. And my book was actually #1 in Canada for a couple of days consecutively in the motherhood category, the motherhood and women's studies category, and the substance abuse category. So that was really exciting for me.
Yeah,
I got excited when it hit. I made a YouTube video that my book made 2,470 on the list, because I was like, there's millions of books out there, and to even get that close, I made a video. I'm like, this might be as good as it gets. I'm going to capture this moment. It's 2,470 right now. And then it got to number one. So that was pretty cool.
Wow. That's so awesome. Good for you for celebrating all the little things along the way. Because I think sometimes we can just wait till there's like this one big milestone, and then it's like, celebrate everything. Everything's a success.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I look forward to reading your book. And I hope that many others listening today will grab it. Calling My Spirit Home. Is that what it's called?
Calling My Spirit Back.
Back. Okay. Calling My Spirit Back. It's so good to see you thriving, and may you continue to step into your greatness and knowing that you are a conduit of spirit. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. This, I kind of knew that you were going to do this to me.
Sneaky.
Yes, but it feels so good, and I'm so thankful for that. And I definitely need to keep in touch with you.
Mm-hmm. I'm here for you.
Thank you.
Cheering you on. Thanks for listening to the Coming Out Chronicles. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. And if you think it would be helpful for someone else, please share it with them. If you'd like to connect with me, reach out on social. I'd love to support you on the next chapter of your coming out story. Until next time, this is Nancy Shadlock from Centered Life Coaching.